Shalom everybody, and welcome to our weekly Tuesday evening class in Chassidut, starting at 7:30, right here in Yerushalayim at Chabad of Rechavia. It is always a great honor to learn together. Tonight we're going to be starting a new chapter, a very special chapter, connected with a very special date coming up, as you'll see in a minute. I first want to mention that we're going to be having a special online Farbrengen with one of the top lecturers, senior rabbis of Chabad worldwide, the one and only Rabbi Manis Friedman. We'll be doing a special Farbrengen this Thursday night from 8 to 9 online in our Zoom room for all the Chabad houses, the English-speaking Chabad houses across Israel. So please spread the word, because this is going to be something not to forget. The Rebbe's yard site will be this Motzai Shabbat and Sunday, as it was on the year of the Rebbe's passing in 1994, and therefore it is very appropriate. And it's very appropriate to have a special Farbrengen, especially on such a magnitude, Thursday evening at 8 till 9. Now we are going to start a new chapter, chapter Chaf Zayin, chapter 27. We will be learning the Igeret HaKodesh, the holy letters of the Alter Rebbe, which is the fourth portion of the Tanya. And we're doing random chapters. We just finished chapter 4. We started with chapter 4. And now we're going to chapter 27. Perek Chav Zayin is a fascinating chapter because it deals with the passing of a tzaddik. In fact, the Alter Rebbe wrote this letter to the Hasidim of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, who came to Israel. He was sort of a teacher / friend of the Alter Rebbe, and when he came to Israel, that's when the Alter Rebbe's leadership really took on a whole new strength. Now, in this letter, as we're going to see in a moment, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that a tzaddik remains connected to his followers even after his passing. Not only that, but in a sense, his connection and bond to his followers after his passing is even greater than while he was alive. Because while he was alive, what was his main life? Was not eating and drinking / sleeping and materialistic endeavors, because he wasn't really into that stuff. And you see that tzaddikim, they enjoy the materialism of the world much less than regular people. So if that was their main focus, thank you, while their neshamas was enclosed in their bodies in this world, how much more so after their passing, that their relationship with the people that were connected to them before their passing is on a much, much higher level. And so basically, this is a letter of comfort, Igeret HaKodesh, a letter of comfort to the Hasidim, the students of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, so that they should feel comforted after the terrible incident of Rabbi Menachem Mendel's passing. The reason why I chose this chapter to start learning now is because in a few days will be the Rebbe's yard site. It's a day which is very, very special. It's a very difficult, in a sense, day when it basically symbolizes the fact that we cannot communicate the way we would ordinarily be communicating as he was before his passing. So as in every case, especially by a Rebbe, that the passing is even more difficult than in a regular situation. So let's read. If you have the Tanya in front of you, you can look inside. If not, just listen along and enjoy the ride. Just before we start, we know that in every scenario of the world, we have divine providence. So even a number, numerical value of a number is also important. The numerical value of 27 is Zach. Chav Zayin, Zach. Zach means pure, which is also connected to the theme of this chapter, that a tzaddik's neshama is pure. Rather, every neshama is pure. But a tzaddik's neshama, also the way it comes down into this world, is also pure. So therefore, after it concludes its mission in this world, and it ascends on high, the purity of the neshama becomes much greater, and also that impacts the Hasidim and the people that the person, the impact of the tzaddik, the neshama of the tzaddik, with the people in this world who not only were connected to him before his passing, but anyone that wishes to connect to him even after his passing. So the Alter Rebbe writes as follows: Ahuvai, achai vereyai, my beloved, my brothers and my friends, asher kenafshi, that are like my soul. That's a real friend. That's a real colleague, someone who's you feel like it's one with you. Hashem aleim yichyu, may Hashem bring life upon you. Chayim ad ha'olam, life forever. The tzetzayim and their children. Atem zera emet, you are the true seed. What a beautiful poetic way of writing. Baruchei Hashem hema. They, in other words, you, are all blessed from Hashem. Me'ata v'ad olam, from now and forever. Achar drishat shlomam. It's a nice way of saying after we've. It's not like blessing to you, peace unto you. After we've already gotten that out of the way, the greetings. Kamishpat le'ohavei shemo. Bati ledaber alev nitkaim hane'enachim v'hane'enakim. So, my mission is, my purpose is right now to speak to your hearts of those that are broken and sad. Ulanachamam bekiflayim l'tushiyah, and to comfort them with a double measure. Asher sham'a ozni, that my ear heard. V'tavenla al ma'amar azal, and it brought understanding upon what our sages teach us. Dishavak chayim l'chol chay. It's an expression in Aramaic. And Aramaic talks about it's almost a nice expression when I say someone passed away. So we say Dishavak chayim l'chol chay. He left life for every living being. In other words, he left and he allowed us to continue living. It's a respectful way of saying that the person passed away. Ki tzadik be'emunato yichya. The tzaddik, he lives in his own emunah. He lives with his the tzaddik lives with his faith, because that's really the life of a tzaddik. A tzaddik, a righteous person, has the faith is not just one of the things he does. He eats, he sleeps, he drinks, he does business, and he has faith. No, yichyeh, bless you, from the word chai. Faith of Hashem is his life. For many of us, for all of us, it's part of us. But for many of us, it's like a little bit removed. We believe, we have faith, it's wonderful, it's part of us, but not necessarily that we live it. All of a sudden, the tzaddik, having the special neshama, The verse, this is a quote from a verse. The tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh. The tzaddik lives with his emunah. It's part of his life. Ki tzaddik ubiyirat Hashem l'chayim, and with fear of Hashem for life. Uberishvei ish. This is so beautiful. Uberishvei ish, and with a flame of fire. Shalhevet ahavato, the flame of his love for Hashem. Mechayim. Lakol bahen chayei rucho v'nishmato. It's almost like it's all-inclusive. It's like a common denominator that goes through everything of his life. You can almost see the love of Hashem vividly. Kol yimei cheldo, all of his days. Vayhi b'halot Hashem. However, when Hashem elevated rucho, this tzaddik's spirit, v'nishmato, and his soul, a love to him, Yesof v'ya'aleh be'ilui achar ilui ad rom hamalot. He will gather and he will elevate one level after the other until the highest levels. Shavak chayei rucho. He left, quote unquote, the spirit of his life. Pe'ulato. This is quoted quite often from the Tanya. Pe'ulato asher avad ba lefanim Yisroel. His accomplishments that he did earlier while he was alive amongst Am Yisrael. Pe'ulat tzaddik l'chayim. I'm sorry. Pe'ulat tzaddik l'chayim l'chol chay. The accomplishment of the tzaddik for all of those that are alive. He nefesh kol chay. This is the living. This is the soul of every living being. Hakshura b'nafsho, which is connected to his soul. B'chevlei avotot ahava rabba, with thick ropes of a tremendous love. The ahavat olam, and eternal love. Bal timot l'netzach, will never go away. Asher mi ha'isha chafetz chayim. For who is the man who desires life? L'davka b'Hashem, to cleave onto Hashem. Chayim ba'avodat b'Hashem chayim, with the living God. Ba'avodatot tidbak nafsho, with serving Hashem. This tzaddik cleaves to. V'haitat surah b'tzorah chayim et Hashem, and his spirit is bonded with one bond of life with Hashem, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said right towards the end of the Zohar, right before he passed away. B'chayei ruach hapenu, with the life of the spirit of our nose, in other words, of our life. Asher amarnu, that we said, b'tzilo nechya b'goyim, we would like to live in his shadow amongst the nations, because it's almost as if he protects us. He's the tzaddik. That's why all of a sudden we feel lost. The tzaddik is gone. We don't see him. So the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that he's not gone. Asher shavak lanu b'chol echad ve'echad, that he left us within every person, kifi b'chinat hitkashruto be'emet, according to the level of his bond, of his connection with the tzaddik. The ahavato ahavat emet haTorah, and his pure, true love that he has, mikerev ish v'lev amok, from deep down, ki kamayim hapanim. Just like it's a quote from one of the verses from Shlomo HaMelech, from King Shlomo, that when one person looks into the water and you see your own image, so the image that you put in, that's what comes back. So your bond with the tzaddik, your connection, your relationship with the tzaddik is what comes back to you. And the same thing is vice versa. It says in the Hayom Yom that the tzaddik thinks about his chasidim at every moment, even before his passing, just being the Rebbe of chasidim. We have an interesting statement that says that machshava mo'elet, thought helps. In other words, it works also by regular people. If you think really, really hard about someone, that can very well awaken by the other individual an inspiration. And sometimes, like, someone will call you and say, I can't believe you're calling me. I just thought about you 5 minutes ago. I don't think I'm making this up. It happens. That's called mind power. It's not fake, it's real. It says in the Torah. This is what Chassidus is about. The machshava, or like the theme of the Tanya, 4 words. Moach shalit al halev. The mind controls the heart. Mind is very, very powerful. You see it if you have, let's say, a room of 100 people listening to a lecture, and all of a sudden one guy turns around and he sees that the guy in back is looking at him. So the guy in back is looking at the guy in the front, and they connect because one guy stared, really made a powerful connection with the other guy. There was a story that once there was a chassid in the 40s that came out of Russia. The Frierdiker Rebbe, in the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, came out of was saved from the Nazis. Yimach Shemam v'Zichram. May their names be erased forever. So the previous Rebbe in 1940 came to America. Today, by divine providence, we're celebrating 80 years to the date that our Rebbe arrived to the shores of the United States of America to safety. So today is a very, very special day. Now this story happened sometime in the 40s. There was a chassid that had been oppressed. I'm not sure if it was by the Germans or the Russians. For all I care, it's all the same stuff. And he came out, and the previous Rebbe at the Farbrengen was talking about these 2 words, machshava mo'elet. Thought helps. So this chassid said to the Rebbe, "Excuse me, Rebbe, but how does thought exactly help? What are you talking about? I mean, if you speak about something, you can accomplish. You do something for sure. But thought? How could thought make something? How could it accomplish something?" So he answered him one-liner. "Where were you last year this time right now?" That's it. And it became very clear. The Rebbe was saying to him, the previous Rebbe was saying to him, "I thought about you so much. And miraculously, you got out of the former Soviet Union, away from Europe, away from burning the furnace of Europe from those days, from the 40s. So there's no question that machshava mo'elet. So now we're getting back to the Hayom Yom. The Rebbe writes in Hayom Yom that when the Rebbe, I think he says every day or very often, the tzaddik thinks about people that are close to him, people that are connected to him. And that arouses by a chassid often a feeling towards the Rebbe, an understanding, a feeling of reciprocation, a desire to want to strengthen their own connection with the tzaddik. So that's the kamayim apanim lepanim ken lev ha'adam el ha'adam. Just like when you look into the water, the image reflects back at you. So too, one heart, the heart of one person, reflects to the other. So when you think about, when you feel for someone, you have strong feelings of love and affection for someone, naturally those feelings will be reciprocated. Just by nature. I'm not even talking about giving them a gift or flowers. That's something which is in addition to that. I'm talking about the actual feeling, the feeling of the closeness. Then the Alter Rebbe continues, "V'ruach, aiti ruach, v'amshich ruach." I believe this is a quote from the Zohar. One spirit, this is in Aramaic, brings another spirit, and it draws down another spirit. In other words, once this bond starts, then it's a never-ending relationship, because each time that one shows one expression of affection, then that naturally brings more, and then it's a domino effect, which doesn't stop. The Rucho, and his spirit, the spirit of the tzaddik, even after he's passed away, omedet b'kirbeinu mamash, literally stands within us. Ki beroto yiladav ma'aseh yadav b'kirbo. Because when his children, I think it means when his students, when they see his accomplishments within the person, יקדישו שמו יתברך אשר יתגדל ויתקדש כאשר נלך בדרך ישרה אשר הורנו מדרכיו. The name of Hashem will become much greater. That's called Yitgadal V'Yitgadash Merabah. That Hashem's great name should be magnified and should be more sacred and holy once the tzaddik, once the tzaddik strengthens his connection with his Hasidim and those that are connected to him, then that becomes a great Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of Hashem's name forever. Asher Horeinu Midrachav, that He taught us from His ways, V'nelcha Baruchotav, and we will go in His ways, Netzach Sela Vayed, forever and ever. At this point, I would like to share with you a very important insight into the whole idea of a passing of a tzaddik. And I think it's going to help us a lot to understand the remainder of the chapter, which I'm sure will be continuing B'ezrat Hashem over the next few weeks. How do you say passing? Well, death is mavet or mitah. Then you say passing, you want to say a little more refined. A little more, if you want to say it a little more refined, you say pitira or niftar. You might have heard the word, a person who was niftar, passed away. Not like, you don't want to say died, you want to say just passed away. It's a more refined way of referring to this, to a very unwanted and bad situation. But then, there's another way which we're talking about a tzaddik, per se.
Nistalik.
Yefeh. Nistalik. And the insight that I'm going to say now is explained by the Rebbe in his first Maimer, in his inaugurating Maimer discourse that he said on the evening that he assumed upon himself the leadership of Chabad in the winter of 1951. Because this was the first yahrzeit of his father-in-law. So naturally he talked about, amongst other things, the concept of passing of a tzaddik. He said a number of things based on this chapter in Tanya. And then he also spoke about the Rebbe's own interpretation and how we can connect to the tzaddik. By the way, this mimer is very relevant to this time. Tomorrow night is Rosh Chodesh, and Thursday night is Rosh Chodesh, and Sunday is the 3rd of Tammuz, the day of the Rebbe's passing. So it's very, very relevant to talk about this subject of the leadership that the Rebbe began in 1951 and continues until today. The Rebbe says the idea, what does istalek mean? If you look from a very simple interpretation, istalek literally means went away. I don't want to be rude, but in the Hebrew, one of the ways of Israelis are very, very respectful. This wasn't the joke of the class, and so they use that word if they want. Maybe I shouldn't have told you. This way you wouldn't understand what they're saying. But on the other hand, you could probably tell what they're saying even if you don't understand the Hebrew. You're just from the body language and anyways. Let's move on. So stalek means like going away or. So, at first glance, it's not a simple concept. A tzaddik is istalek. For example, it says in the Talmud, there are two statements in the Talmud, very similar to one another. One statement is kashe silukan shel tzaddikim kisreifat bet Elokeinu. Silukan. Siluk is like istalek, istalkut, same root word. The passing of a tzaddik is difficult for Hashem, for us. Like the burning of the Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash, Hashem's home, Hashem's edifice in this world. Like a tzaddik is a walking home of Hashem. The other statement is yoter misreifat bet Elokeinu, that it's even worse, more severe, more difficult to experience, to stomach, than the burning of the Beit HaMikdash. So the Rebbe says something very, very. I'm gonna use the word beautiful, even though the concept is just beautiful. The concept is tremendous. He says that usually we associate the word going away, histalkut, literally, he's not here, right? If he goes away, or if, let's say, if his neshama leaves the body, then the neshama is away, up and away. It's not here anymore. The body remains here, but the neshama goes away. No, the Rebbe says that's not the correct interpretation. And here's the punchline. Beautiful insight. There is another scenario which you could still call it histalkut, but he's right here. Let's bring an example. You can have a president of a country or a chief rabbi of the state, person of great stature, wisdom, even if you don't know his name, and even if you don't know that he's the chief rabbi, but when he walks into the room, you have this aura, you have this special feeling, atmosphere that comes with him. Another example, a person of that caliber that walks into the room and instead of sitting in the front, sits in the back. It's not an embarrassment for him, on the contrary. He lights up the back. Or as a dear friend of mine told me, that when he, years ago, in his work, they used to have weekly or monthly meetings in his job, and the president of the company would usually sit at the head of the table at the meeting. One time, the individual sat in the middle or at the end. So someone told him, "Mr. President, please come sit over here at the head of the table." So he answered, "Wherever I sit is the head of the table." So the point that I'm trying to bring across is that you can have a scenario of a person who is exalted, who is special, and in the context of the prophets that we talk about Shlomo HaMelech, King Shlomo, telling us how great he was. It says, "Mishichmo v'mala gavoa mikol ha'am." From his shoulders and above, he was greater. It's not only a physical presence; it's an aura. It's an inner atmosphere, an inner shine that comes from the individual. And here's the punchline. He can be right here in a room of 1,000 people, but he's going to stick out. He's exalted. He's like on a cloud or on another level. Have you ever heard this expression? On a plane, on another cloud, in another planet. Sometimes it can be used I'm talking about with a positive connotation. Wow, this person is like on another level, on a totally other level than the rest of us. And that's exactly the point that the Rebbe explains in that first mimer. He says, don't be concerned about histalkut. Of course, it's painful. It's difficult to come to terms with. But realize that the tzaddik is not away. Like most people would translate the word histalkut. It went away. That's a literal translation. It means, histalkut means exalted. Now, one can say exalted means exalted all the way up. No. In this case, it means exalted here, but on a much more meaningful level, on a much more impactful level. That's what histalkut means. So that interpretation from the Rebbe is based on chapter Chav Zayin of the Tanya, Igeret HaKodesh, chapter 27. Now, hopefully we'll understand the next several lines of this part of the Tanya. Now it's going to be, a big part of it is going to be quotes from the Zohar. And then, in the next part of this chapter, will be an explanation for what the Zohar says. So up until now, we learned about some very affectionate words that the Alter Rebbe wrote to the students of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk. Now the Alter Rebbe is quoting the Zohar. V'zeu shekatuv, and this is what it says, B'Zohar HaKodesh, in the Holy Zohar. The tzadika di'it patar, that a tzaddik that passed away, listen to this, the quote from the Zohar. Ishtakach bekulhu almin, finds himself. The Zohar says, Ishtakach bekulhu almin, he finds himself in all the worlds. Not only in the higher worlds, spiritual realm, but also in this world. Believe it or not, even though his soul has left his body, he finds himself, the Zohar tells us, bekulhu almin. The next two words are very powerful. It's Aramaic. Yatir mibchayohi. More than during his life. Chayohi is like chay, chayim. Chayohi, similar root word. Yatir, it's like yoter, more. So this is Aramaic. So it's yatir mibchayohi. More than when he was alive. Wow, that's a very powerful statement. And it's very appropriate when we're learning about the impact of a tzaddik on this world and on the people that are close to him even after he passed away. So that's what the Zohar says, that a tzaddik that passes away, he finds himself in all of the worlds, yatir mibchayohi, more than while he was alive. Okay, let's continue now. Dahainu, that means to say, shegam ba'azeh ha'olam hamaseh. That's what I said earlier. That also including this world, this physical materialistic world, like it says in the Torah, in the end of Parashat Vayetchanan, Hayom la'asotam, today they need to be done. When is there a chance to do mitzvahs? Only here in this world. So some people look at it from a negative point of view. This world, what is it anyways? It's only a materialistic world. There's no meaning. It's all external. It's empty. No. There's something over here in this world that you don't even have in the highest worlds of Yetzirah, Bria, Tzilut, Keter, the highest realms. That only over here in this world, la'asotam, can we do the mitzvot. After the neshama goes above, after 180 years, there's no more this opportunity to accomplish. That's why Mashiach is going to come to this world. Because this world is what it's all about. This is where we did all of our Torah and mitzvot. All of the great accomplishments happen here. So there is something very, very precious and priceless about accomplishing Torah and mitzvot in this materialistic world. And therefore, when the Zohar says, Bekulhu almin, in all of the worlds the tzaddik finds himself, it also means, and according to the Alter Rebbe, primarily in this world. Ishtakach yatir, he finds himself yatir, yoter, even more. Ki hamase gadol, gadal v'holech gidule gidulin, because the deed that we do grows, multiplies, many-fold. Is that how you say it? Many times fold or many-fold?
Many-fold.
Many-fold, thank you. Many more times. Min or zarua la tzaddik, from the light which is seed, which is planted for the tzaddik. We say it right in the beginning, right before the Kol Nidrei on the eve of Yom Kippur. Or zarua la tzaddik, quoted from verse 96 from Tehillim. 97. Or zarua la tzaddik, there's a light which is planted, sown for the tzaddik. Ul Yisroel lev simcha. So, what happens when you plant a seed? It's not just that little seed that comes out, more seeds, but there's fruit. And from those fruit, there are also seeds. You can plant those and make many more. It's never ending. The bracha, the blessing, the shefa, the inspiration is never ending. So this bracha that the tzaddik brought to this world while he was alive continues to blossom even after his passing. Basadeh, where did the tzaddik sow? Where did the tzaddik, so to speak, plow and work and prepare all of his efforts in this world? Basadeh asher beracho Hashem. It's a quote from the verse of Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak, our forefather, he said he had mea sharim, he had 100-fold more than a huge blessing when he planted. So we're borrowing from that verse. This light, hameir la'aretz, which shines onto the land, the chutzot, and outside as well. V'gam anachnu ele po hayom, and also us, all of us that were Baruch Hashem alive today. Kulanu chayim b'drachav. We all live in His ways because we follow His guidance and His holiness. Derech HaKodesh yikarela. The holy way is called. Zot ba'avodat Hashem b'milei d'shmaya. So we have in the spiritual realm and in the physical realm. So in spiritually, the tzaddik did a lot of sowing and planting and plowing, is all basically symbolic words. It means preparation for the bracha to have effect for many happy years to come. But not only spiritually speaking, also ubemili alma, also in worldly matters. It says clearly in the Holy Zohar, the Alter Rebbe says, "The tzadikaya miginin al alma." While the tzaddik is alive, the tzaddik protects the world, is a shield for the world, like a magen, right? Magen in Hebrew means a shield. Over mitaton, and when they pass away, yatir mibchayehon. They continue to impact the world even more than when they were alive. There's a phrase about, I think it was Rabbi Chanina, that Hashem said, "Kol ha'olam nizon bishvil Chanina b'ni." Hashem was basically saying the compliment for the great tzaddik Rabbi Chanina. And so the simple meaning is that Hashem said the entire world gets its food and parnasa and livelihood for my son Chanina. In other words, the tzaddik is the most important part of the generation. By the way, there's also another 6 billion people, or today it's 7. But the whole world is b'shvil Chanina b'ni. But according to the Chassidus, a beautiful interpretation. Shvil is also a pathway. That the tzaddik is the funnel, the channel through which Hashem brings His bracha to the world. In other words, in His zechut, in His merit, in the tzaddik's merit, the entire world is satiated. That's exactly what it says over here. That the tzaddik doesn't only bring spiritual bracha, but also materialistic bracha. The tzaddik brings to the world. V'ilmalei, this is continuation of the Aramaic. V'ilmalei tzlotad tzadikaya, and without the prayer, the davening, tefillah of the tzaddik, behahu alma, in the world, lo itkayem alma riga chada. The world would not be able to be sustained, to stand, even in one moment. V'chola karov, whoever is closer to the tzaddik, karov el mishkan Hashem, is closer to the sanctuary of Hashem. B'chayav, in his life, in his lifetime, kodem lebracha. He will have an earlier bracha. He will have a greater connection for the bracha. So, in other words, the tzaddik, even though he passed away in the physical sense, nevertheless, his bond and his relationship to his followers continue, and on a greater level, even after his passing, both to those who were connected to him before his passing, and also those that connect to him after his passing. It just says that whoever is karov, whoever is closer, so the bracha is greater, because naturally the tzaddik, as we're going to see in the next shiur, in the next class, that the entire life of the tzaddik was never a materialistic one. Anyways, it was always a spirit. It was one of spiritual growth. So it's not like now much has changed. It's pretty much, in a great sense, it's similar. So these are the words of comfort that the Alter Rebbe writes to the Talmidim, the students, and the Hasidim of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, living right here in Eretz Yisrael. The great tzaddik Rabbi Menachem Mendel is buried in Tveria, in the same place as the Rambam and other great Tanaim, authors of the Mishnah. And of course, this applies also to the Alter Rebbe himself. These are his words. So when we think about the amazing Kedusha, holiness of the Alter Rebbe himself, we realize that this chapter applies to him as well. And I had the zechut when I was by the resting place of the Alter Rebbe in Hadich, in Ukraine, to learn this chapter. What a great zechut! And now that the flying is becoming more and more back to normal, if you can say so, slowly but surely, we should definitely consider going to the Alter Rebbe, and maybe we should even do a trip. That would be amazing, to go to the Ukraine and to go to the tzaddikim, not only to the Alter Rebbe, to many of the other Rebbes, the Baal Shem Tov. And that's something which really connects to this chapter, because this chapter of Chav Zayin brings the tzaddik alive. It's almost as if we're not going to a cemetery. Actually, it's called Bet HaChaim, a house of the living. Some people call it Bet HaKvarot, the cemetery, which is a place where people are buried. But in Chassidus, we try to call it a Bet HaChaim, because the neshamas are alive. And when you go to the resting place of a tzaddik, you're not experiencing. Sorry, tired. We're not experiencing something, God forbid, sad or brings depression. Rather, something which is uplifting. I wouldn't say happy, because it's not exciting to see the tzaddik in such a situation, but it's much more of has much more of a positive connotation, being at the resting place of a tzaddik. And that connects also to what we learned this past week in the parsha of the Meraglim of the spies, that Yehoshua and Kalev, 2 out of the 12 spies that succeeded to stay in line and didn't get lost by the plot of their 10 colleagues. Excuse me. What did Kalev do? He went to the resting place of Avraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, Adam Rishon and Chava, Adam and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, and Yaakov and Leah, in Hebron, right here in Eretz Yisrael, Kiryat Arba. Because he knew that when you go to the resting place of a tzaddik, it's a place of inspiration, it's a place of holiness, and it's a place of bracha from Hashem. When we daven, we don't, God forbid, daven to the tzaddik. We only daven to Hashem. But we request Hashem that in the merit of the tzaddik, and look at what we're learning now. All of the work that the tzaddik did while he was alive was like sowing and planting and plowing and working the land and making an eternal impact on the world. Not just spiritually speaking, but also in the physical world, the most materialistic way that's ever possible. And so therefore, I look forward to being able to continue with you, learning this chapter, and Bezrat Hashem, next week. For next week, you can prepare already your Tanya, chapter 27, right in the middle, where it says Biur al Anal, the explanation for the above. Hopefully, the inspiration of the Farbrengen this Thursday night from 8 till 9 on our Zoom and Facebook Live in our Zoom room. We'll be sending out the link a few more times, hopefully before Thursday night. But please send the word around, because this is going to be an opportunity for us to be inspired into the greatness of the Rebbe and the impact that the Rebbe had on Eretz Yisroel. On Eretz Yisroel. Before his passing, and even now, Bezrat Hashem, that is going to be the focus of the Farbrengen for this week. And of course, on Gimel Tammuz itself, please make an effort to participate in a Farbrengen, a special Farbrengen. Do extra mitzvahs. Go on Mitzrayim. What would make the Rebbe happy? To put on tefillin on a few people. Give out Shabbat candles. Give out brochures. Living Jewish. Sichat HaShavua. If you understand Hebrew, you will be amazed to participate. We're going to be advertising it very, very soon. Hopefully tonight. An amazing Farbrengen on Sunday night in Hebrew with Aaron Rosel, the famous singer that lives right here in Nachlot. And it's going to be hopefully in the great synagogue right here next door. And come in person. We're expecting a few hundred people, Bezrat Hashem, in the Rebbe's honor. And we'll be able to continue learning next week the continuation of this chapter, and hopefully to learn the Rebbe's insights in Torah, which really brings to life the Rebbe's neshama, the Rebbe's being, the Rebbe's inspiration. And you can see more and more how the Rebbe's guidance continues to keep Chabad flourishing until now and forever. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for joining us. Bezrat Hashem, we look forward to seeing you at many more shiurim, and the Kabbalah Cafe, and this Shabbat, and Sunday night, Bezrat Hashem, and of course Thursday night. All the best.